with John and Cassie and little Noe, and we're going to talk today about what your journey to purchasing this house and living here has been like. Tell me that one story that I like so much about when you first found Laurel Canyon.
Well, I mean, you were, I think, a little bit stressed out. We were under a pretty significant time crunch to get something in a short period. And it had to fit a number of parameters. And this came up, I saw the listing, and I showed it to Kassie and I showed it to my mom, and they just had zero interest. And I think it's because, although maintained and charming, it just kind of has a very just 50s tract house feel. And that's what I loved about it, though, is it's such a surprise. The house, the street, I grew up here, I've lived here my entire life. I didn't know this street existed.
Right.
And as soon as it's the same thing with opening the front door. This cathedral ceiling, I mean, this is the level of the quality of the wood and the way that everything is built is just a lot more than what you would expect of the 50s tract house.
So then you get here and you're like, great, 2 bedrooms, that's perfect. What else did you love about the property? You know, the school boundary, I know that was important to you, but tell me what else you found so compelling about it.
From the second he could walk, he is a rambunctious, I think might be the right word, kid. He wants to run, he wants to ride his bike, he wants to scream as loud as he can, and this is, you know, the semi-rural designation of Santa Barbara that people like to give it. This is kind of the epitome of that, in the sense that we're tucked up right against the foothills with a park at the end of this cul-de-sac that most people don't know exists, that has a bunch of hiking trails and places he can run and scream and ride his bike downhill and give us anxiety.
Yeah, and one of the trails even just loops right down to Stevens Park, which is on the other side of Foothill, so that's really great. You know, he loves going down there and going on the swings and slides and all of that.
That's where I used to see you guys a
yes,
lot.
and we would be walking the other way.
Walking through San Roque.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even realize that we're just like a hop, skip, and a jump from Stevens Park and walking to like all the places where you might shop. The Trader Joe's, Gelson's.
I walk to Handlebar and meet friends with kids all the time. It's really fun.
We came from Laurel Canyon, and the ease with which everything can happen here is just like mind-blowing.
Well, I mean, that was something too that I was relatively unfamiliar with San Roque as a neighborhood before we moved here, and we're really exploring it, and I just love how centrally located it is. It's so close to downtown, it's so close to, you know, the big box stores in Goleta. You know, we go and do swim lessons at the Cathedral Oak Swell. It's all like, we're just so centrally located.
Yes.
And also I love that everything's kind of just up and down Foothill, because I personally don't love jumping on the freeway. And I like that you don't really have to from this house.
Yeah, and then there is, I mean, you mentioned it at the beginning, but Peabody. That was one of the main reasons that we were interested, and then secondarily, and now one of the main things that we're, you know, shaking our heads a little bit about, because the house that we're trying to move to is not in Peabody. So that's
a bummer.
Tough.
Yeah, so tell us about that decision, because this is such a great spot, and having an architectural designer of significance in the family, that's kind of what we do, right? We buy something and we change it or improve it. So what was your plan for this?
Well, I walked in and saw that we were going to have opportunities for views that were really great. There were going to be views south to the city, the seminary, the mission. I mean, you literally can see the mission. I'm 6'5", so someone shorter might not be able to see the mission, but I can see the mission over our fence, and we can see the ocean from our bedroom, from our bed. But then on the other side, the mountains are almost equally as attractive. And then not only that, but looking that direction, looking northwest, we can see the ocean out towards the university. And so it immediately, from just a valuation standpoint, was pretty clear that we needed more room. We might as well go up to a second story so that we could capitalize on those views. And you know, the plans that we had designed changed over a period of really 6 months or so, but what we came up with really maximized the space. It's probably bigger than most people would want. You know, I realize that everybody is going to design it for themselves. This fit perfectly for the four of us, Noe,
And a rambunctious dog.
yes, our rambunctious dog. But it offered a lot of easy opportunity for expansion without taking away from the existing charm.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to update it in this neighborhood especially, which has come so far in terms of valuation in just the last 3 or 4 years, looked like a great opportunity to us. So we are, you know, we're struggling a little bit because the plans that we have.
You have approval now, right?
We have consent approval from the Single Family Design Board, but we've not pulled permits. Which, you know, if any potential buyer wants to do any modification of our plans, if it qualifies.
Single level and,
right. If it can be you know, I'm not an architect. You'd have to ask Dad or any other architect. But what qualifies as a modification? Well, if you can qualify for a modification, that means that you can avoid the really lengthy SFDB planning process and potentially get something approved, even though you're changing everything that's on our plans, or a lot of it, in you know, a period of 6 weeks instead of 6 or 9 months. But we are, you know, we're struggling with that a little bit because my dad is almost 90, and I don't know if there's going to be another opportunity for him to design us a house. That was also one of the things, but it's, you know, so consequently, the plans that we have, we collectively threw everything into that to try to make it as nice a house as we possibly could, really kind of a standout for this whole, right.
Yeah. But ultimately, she showed up, and we just need more space faster than we were able to get the remodel going. So we found another house that's bigger, that just suits our needs now.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to imagine with 2 littles, you know, undertaking a big project and maybe having to move out for that length of time, and the expense of the move out and the other location and then the build. So I totally understand that. It makes good sense.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's very livable the way it is. If someone did want to modify, this is a good juncture to pass the baton.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the house has a lot of potential. All of the houses, or most of the houses on the street, have been redone in some way.
A couple of them are.
Yeah. So, you know, you can kind of get a glimpse at when you walk up and down the street of what's possible. And she has a lot to say about it too.
Yeah. She likes remodels. The main thing is that whole process that took far longer than we ever intended, and I'm sure if you polled everybody that was doing a project in Santa Barbara, they'd say roughly the same thing. But by the time now that we have the full consent approval, we don't necessarily, she's gotten old enough that it's really not practical. And so when a house that we weren't really looking for was brought to our attention, that was a really good deal, that we didn't need to do anything to anytime soon, me as somebody that likes to add value, struggled with it a little bit, but gosh, does it make a lot more sense for us as a family and not having to, you know, struggle with all the logistics of project and moving today. It's hard with her.